Hi guys, this is Mohit Musani from ScreenBinge.com. Today we have a very special guest with us. Uh, Back to the Future Part 2, Back to the Future Part 3, Savior of None, Damn California, Cork, Back in Time, The Boat Builder, Back to the Future, Johnny Dangerously, Pale Rider, Twilight Zone the movie, none other than Jeffery Wisseman. Hello Jeffrey, how are you doing?
Mr. Musani,
Hello,
salam alaikum.
hello, hello, hello. It's a great pleasure to see you, to talk to you. I mean, you guys are the very foundation of Hollywood as we see it today, you know. You guys have done the, you
Thank
know,
you, Mr. Musani, for having me on. And thank you, ScreenBinge, for having me on here.
Screen
Salam
Binge
alaikum.
is all about, movies and streaming and entertainment. So we are very thankful for you to come over here and, give us an interview. I mean, you're no underdog. Everybody knows you. Everybody knows uh Back to the Future. I mean, even people who don't understand the language know Back to the Future.
Fine.
So I think you don't even know how popular you are.
Well, it's interesting because originally the production, I think, wanted to keep me somewhat secret. They wouldn't give me the materials to promote myself
Uh-huh.
until many months after the films were out.
Right?
Uh, because of the makeups that I had to wear to
Uh-huh.
play young George McFly, uh, and so I wasn't really aware of how popular I had become
Uh-huh.
until many years later,
Yeah.
until doing fan cons like the
Uh-huh.
London Film and Comic Con and other fan shows where I had attention from all over the world, and it was very moving. It was very wonderful for me.
So, did that fame somehow take over you? Did it make you feel like a king or something?
Yes, I'm a king. No, it just did my heart very nice things. It made me feel uh, appreciated,
Uh-huh.
where for years I didn't think I had the appreciation of say the Hollywood establishment so much, but
Mm-hmm.
from the fans, it really made me feel good. And I'm a very social person, and
Uh-huh.
meeting the fans around the world, many have become friends over the years.
Uh-huh.
So
That is very
it's a
nice.
lovely,
That is very
yeah.
nice. All right.
Arf.
So, Jeffrey, a lot of people are interested in knowing what got you into acting in the first place.
Uh, I think I came out of my mother's womb uh, wanting to act. I was always on. I remember growing up hearing stories about
Uh-huh.
myself in my high chair at the dinner table, being silly, making jokes, and trying to be the center of attention. And through
Uh-huh.
school, grade school, elementary school, and junior high, I finally started getting on stage
Uh-huh.
in my junior high and high school years. And my parents didn't really want me to be an actor.
And why
They
is that?
they knew how rough. They knew how hard an actor's life can be. So they really didn't let me. I still wanted to pursue it after high school,
Mm-hmm.
and went after training and started getting on movie sets.
Uh-huh.
So so I got my start basically on stage, and then doing
Mm.
film with friends in junior high and high school.
Stage is a very difficult platform, right? Because there are no, retakes, no second chances. It has to come from within.
Yes, well, it's a different animal. I know I'm often asked, what do I prefer, stage, film, or television?
Yeah.
And I really like all three. I
Uh-huh.
find all three are uniquely unto themselves. They're kind of different animals where
Uh-huh.
on stage you have the luxury of rehearsing perhaps a month or more before
Uh-huh.
you go opening night in front of a
Right.
live audience. And in the rehearsal process, you bring in all the choices that you make with relationships and for actions that bring life, and and you nail it down. And on in front of a live audience, there's instant gratification. You know, whether they're
Yeah, that is
crying
true.
your character, whether they're laughing with you, whether you're cheering and applauding.
Uh-huh.
On film and television work, some television work is in front of a live audience, but generally on TV series that are not uh, in front of a live audience, taped in front of a live audience, or on film, your audience is your crew, the
Right.
film crew that is there,
Right.
your cinematographer, your cameraman, your director, etc.,
Right.
and your fellow actors. And
True.
you never know what it's going to be like until maybe months later, maybe even a year later,
When
when you
people
see it on
start
the big
talking about
screen.
it.
Yes, and it's been edited, and
Yeah.
maybe your best work has landed on the floor, has been cut out.
Yeah,
You never
that is a
know.
problem with a lot of creatives. That is a genuine
Yes.
problem with a lot of creative people.
I remember in a film I did that it's never been released called To Serve and to Protect, though I had a very wonderful sort of miracle happen on the third take. And I remember calling the director for months saying, how's that third take come out? Because my character gets sick. And and anyway, I don't want to tell exactly what happened because it's kind of disgusting. But I know that on that third take, the sky opened up and the gods smiled, and it was very, very funny what happened on that. And I've
Yeah.
had that happen on other films and on Nobody's Laughing, and even on Back to the Future 2. I had a couple of things happen that I thought were very funny that did not
Mm,
make the final cut. One is in
right.
the bonus material. It's called Pizza, a
Uh-huh.
scene that was deleted. And it's generally either something that is improvised or that happens in the moment that wasn't planned, may not be in the
Mm,
script,
right.
and uh, it just brings more life. And I know from working comedy for so many years that it was very funny. My intuition or experience has told me that, oh, that really worked. I hope it stays in. But you never know.
Mm.
Whereas on stage, you
On
get that
stage.
instant gratification. You know it's already in,
Yeah,
and it works.
you know if you've done a good job or a bad job. It's just there, right?
Precisely. Yes.
Yeah. So my second question was gonna be, what do you like doing more on stage or
And
movies? And
that's
but you
very, like I
already
say,
answered
it's
that. Yeah.
Mr. Masani, it's
Yeah.
very hard to pick one or the other because I love the process of all three.
Uh-huh.
I love being a part of an ensemble cast that a
Mm-hmm.
TV series often has. I love the work and collaboration that film demands, and I
Mm-hmm.
love the instant gratification of having an audience live with the response on stage. They
Yeah.
are all great ways for me to exercise my acting muscle.
Exactly. Exactly. So Jeffrey, if I'm not wrong, I Wanna Hold Your Hand was your first movie. Is that correct?
I I think it was my first time on a professional studio lot, movie studio lot.
Uh-huh.
I had it's hard for me to remember back then. It was 1977, 78, and I just wanted to get on a movie studio and see what it was like.
Uh-huh.
Get my toe in the water. So I
Right.
was doing background work
Mm-hmm.
just to see what it was all about, and I appear in a film called The Rose with Bette
Mm-hmm.
Midler, another one called FM with Martin Mull and Eileen Brennan.
Uh-huh.
And then I Want to Hold Your Hand, which was directed by Robert Zemeckis. I play a Ringo fan outside the Beatles Hotel in New York in
Right.
1963, I think it is. And I don't think Zemeckis was comfortable directing the crowds or something, so he brought in his friend Steven Spielberg to direct us.
Right.
And that in particular was a very hot day
Mm-hmm.
in Burbank in Los Angeles.
Right.
Um, it was probably 100 degrees or so, and we were supposed to be in New York in the freezing winter, and we're all bundled up, and extras were dropping like flies, fainting from the heat.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh, stupid.
A lot of people think that acting is, acting is easy. A lot of people have this perception that acting, it doesn't take anything. But I believe that a person has to, feel the character and step in its shoes to really do the type of work that you guys do,
Well,
honestly.
it's interesting. I've met very successful actors
Hmm.
who who have never trained,
True.
and they have the talent already, and they have the instincts from either watching family members or others that they believe in or respect, and doing the work. Otherwise, I recommend any person that wants to pursue acting get training, because to have the tools that you need to be able to bring life, to tell a story, you need to know what triggers in you
Yeah.
the how to affect the conditions that'll bring about the emotional states and responses that are needed to tell the story of your character.
Right.
And if you you could study, there's several different acting
Hmm.
methodologies that are very viable. And if you have in your pocket the tools that they offer, you're going to be
Right.
better off than those actors that don't have the training. There are stars though out there who haven't trained,
Right.
and but they also have had lots of experience on set,
On set. Right.
and yeah, and they bring that brings a lot of knowledge in itself. The
Hmm.
experience, the opportunity. Though I teach acting, and I always tell my students, I try to find out right away who's in it for fame, who's
Uh-huh.
in it for money, and then
Uh-huh.
try to dissuade them from it, because fame and fortune is hopefully just a byproduct of very
Byproduct.
hard work.
A means to an end, basically.
Yeah, the end is the hard work, is the
True.
storytelling
Yeah,
and the celebration of life.
exactly. So, did you, in your initial years, feel any kind of pressure working with high profile actors, actresses, stuff like that? We all do feel a little nervous when we start off anything, when we start off with maybe a banking job or anything. Did you ever feel pressurized by the, you know,
Yeah, well, there's a certain amount of expectation.
right?
And early on, when I was a child,
Mm-hmm.
I was attracted to other actors that I would
Mm-hmm.
meet. I knew some children growing up that had been on television shows, child actors, and I'd see different shows shooting in maybe the neighborhood, and I'd go visit the actors and speak with them and get advice.
Uh-huh.
And then when I got on sets, it was always wonderful to see my idols or people I looked up to in the
Mm-hmm.
industry. But you know, we have as a society kind of uh, mutated this pop culture. Uh, it's almost religious fervor that we
Mm-hmm.
put these pop culture icons on a pedestal, and the Tom Cruises and Brad Pitts and Julia Roberts, and the big stars out there, they are humans too. They have to go to the bathroom and eat and do all the things that you and I have to do. It's just
Yeah.
that they have been uh, picked out by providence or hard work to be, at the status that they've achieved.
Right.
I I also believe that they earned where they got through once again
Hard
their
work.
hard work and shouldn't necessarily be um, there's an imbalance, I think, very big imbalance, uh,
Mm.
and and I think there's going to be an adjustment just because of the new world of the pandemic that's kind of leveling the playing field. There,
Uh-huh.
we're all having to redefine ourselves and really come together. I think the world as people need to come together
Right. Very true.
to help, embrace science, do the things we need to heal the planet. Otherwise, the planet's going to destroy us. I really
Exactly.
think the planet will be here long after humans are gone. Uh,
Yeah,
I don't
I also
know what kind of
believe in that.
there.
And it's a very scary thing to even think about it.
So when I got on sets and would meet, say, a big star, the first big stars I met were at my father's club, Omar Sharif
Uh-huh.
and uh, Lauren Green and
Mm-hmm.
Don Adams. They were regular people and they spoke to me, as a nice kid and gave
Right.
me advice.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Mel Brooks' shoot of Young Frankenstein and
Right.
met Peter Boyle and Marty Feldman and
Uh-huh.
the stars of that, and they were very just lovely people, and for us to treat them as anything more than just people is kind of silly, and yet our culture has kind of created these greater than you and I folk, which they aren't.
Which they
I think
aren't.
we lost perspective in a way. When I was
Mm-hmm.
growing up, and before in generations before, you never paid for an actor's autograph. You'd write a letter to the studio and request an autographed picture. The studio would send you one, or if you saw an actor after a stage show or outside of a soundstage,
Oh,
they'd autograph something for you. There was never any money involved in that. And now
right.
that's become a business. And so it's always, at first, of course, it was very uncomfortable for me to charge for my autograph. First of all, my writing isn't that great, but because the fans want that, and also it's a business thing and it's a way for me as a struggling actor, believe me,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the pandemic, I've had $40,000 worth of work disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Some film work, stage work, some fan cons, some living history work, all out the window, and I'm burning through my savings. And now I'm like, okay, I've got to sell my autograph because that's all I can do. It's very strange. It's very strange,
Oh,
and it's become an accepted norm to
these are in
pay.
fact really hard times.
Yeah, it is what it is right
Yeah,
now.
true.
We'll get through it.
So, Back to the Future Part 1 was, already a big hit, right?
Yes.
And in fact, you guys even had had the 35th anniversary a couple of days ago. So, how was the event?
Well, when I think back to 1985 of the first film, uh, that year I had a film come out with Clint Eastwood that I co-star in called
Mm-hmm.
Pale Rider, and it was
Right,
Clint Eastwood's return to westerns,
right.
and that was the highest grossing western of the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that summer going to see Back to the Future and loving it. It was such a fun film, and I knew Crispin Glover, who plays George, from a previous film I worked with him at the American Film Institute, and I was just so happy. I was so proud of him. I said, I know that guy. He's doing an incredible job, and of course Michael and Leah and Chris did just fantastic work, and Tom. And then 4 years later, I pinched myself because here Crispin decided he didn't like the money or whatever. In my mind, because I was originally asked to be his photo double and stand-in. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I learned that I'd be taking over the role in the 11th hour before shooting, in my mind, he couldn't get out of another film project. Little
Mm-hmm.
did I know that it was they were butting heads contractually over money and control and stuff. So knowing that the first film was the highest grossing film of 1985, I knew that part two and part three probably would be done very well and make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also critically quite successful. So having, with the 35th anniversary just a few days ago, being celebrated around the world, it was very exciting for me to finally, I did a panel interview with the Japanese fans, and in my
Uh-huh.
panel, all the fans that showed up, and this was also a fundraiser for Michael's Team Fox,
Uh-huh.
Parkinson's Foundation.
Uh-huh.
Uh, all the Japanese fans that were there in their little squares on the Zoom panel meeting
Uh-huh.
were all dressed in cosplay as a different character from the Back to the Future movies.
Uh-huh.
So it was heartwarming to see the excitement from the Japanese fans, then the French fans and the
Uh-huh.
Spanish fans, and all the different meetings that I did in celebration of the 35th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a large contingent of DeLorean owners
Mm-hmm.
around the world. And there was a big DeLorean convention meeting virtually as well that I was a part of. Part of that, we introduced and premiered a film called DeLorean Living the Dream. And that encompasses the Back to the Future fans as well because of the Time Machine DeLorean.
Right.
So I celebrated in many different ways, a lot of different panels, a lot of different chats with fans around the world.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so Jeffrey, you've had a very long career, and did you sort of, build a bond with a particular actor or somebody who you enjoyed working with the most?
Oh, who did I enjoy working with the most? I don't want to upset anyone. Let's see.
That's a that's a tough one, huh?
Well, the first big star that I am in a movie with that I co-star with it was John Lithgow
Uh-huh.
in the Twilight Zone movie.
Right.
George Miller, the director of the Mad Max movies,
Mm-hmm.
directed us, and it was a very wonderful ensemble cast that worked really well together and to bring to life the remake of the original Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, where there's a creature on the wing of the airplane tearing the airplane apart, and only one character can see him, and John played that role. And I was in awe of his wonderful, first of all, talent, and then secondly, or maybe even more so, of what a sincerely wonderful spirit he is. He
Mm-hmm.
was just a very sweet man with a huge heart, you could tell. So I enjoyed working with John, and George Miller, the director, was just magnificent, really
Mm-hmm.
easy to get along with and funny, funny, fun.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, on the Pale Rider, on the Clint Eastwood film, I liked very much working with Clint, and Michael Moriarty had a huge heart.
Right.
Carrie Snodgrass, the lead actress, she and I had mutual friends, so I got together with her all the time to
Uh-huh.
chat about the film. I worked with Dick Van Dyke,
Mm-hmm.
and because I played the character Stan Laurel of Laurel and Hardy
Right.
at Universal Studios on the tour from 1987 to 2001, and Dick was very close friends with Stan Laurel. We had mutual ground to talk about, and I also, through my work as Stan Laurel, had met Eleanor Keaton, Buster Keaton's
Mm-hmm.
widow, and Dick knew her as well. So we had a lot to talk about, and
Mm-hmm.
Dick opened up, and that was really lovely. At first, Michael J. Fox was a little standoffish, but by the end of the first week of shooting, I was, sharing a beer with him in his dressing room and talking about the farm that he was thinking about buying, and he told me a lot of stories. And Michael was
Uh-huh.
very sweet, and we got along great.
Mm-hmm.
It was really wonderful for me over the years to become friends with
Mm-hmm.
Leah Thompson and Christopher Lloyd.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always liked also meeting people who I didn't know anything about that had been stars in their own right. I did a stage show with a gentleman named Ken Mayer who was on
Mm-hmm.
a live TV show back in the 1950s called Space Patrol.
Right.
And I worked with Milton Berle on stage, and lots of different people. I always try to be personable. Stars that are closed off or have a bad vibe, it
Mm.
really upsets me because it just doesn't make sense to me that
So
they
you stay
should.
away
But
from the negative vibes, right?
yeah, it's disappointing, and it's
Uh-huh.
not very often. I remember because I went to high school with
Mm-hmm.
Sean Penn and his brothers when I
Right.
did a film with Sean, and I knew Sean peripherally from high school.
Right.
Um, Sean would stay in character because that's his technique, and he was even talking with me off set. He was
Mm.
still in character, and I was like, Sean, drop the character. It's me. It's Jeffrey from high. I
Right.
remember when you were engaged to Pam Springsteen, and we
Uh-huh.
partied at her house and so on and so forth, and watched old high school films. And he
Mm.
dropped it for just a moment,
Mm-hmm.
and then had to, I think, because it was his technique. And I've heard others say, he has to stay in that character all the time because they're living it. And
Mm-hmm.
there are other actors who do that, and I can't fault him for that. I just wish he was more accessible as a person. Um,
Right.
anyway, that's neither here nor there. He's great talent.
Mm-hmm. So, Jeffrey, you even played Mark Twain, one of the world's greatest writer. So, was it, you know, a lot of pressure to hold on,
Oh,
representing someone who was so huge?
yeah, I'm used to that kind of pressure in that.
Uh-huh.
Example, when I started playing Stan Laurel, I knew that there are these super fans of Laurel and Hardy who would scrutinize my every move. I would perform not only at the studio on the tour and in shows, but also for the fan clubs, the Sons of the Desert, which is an international fan club of
Mm-hmm.
Laurel and Hardy. So I was scrutinized. So I would study and research and make sure I get mannerisms and voice and
Mm.
lines and characterization together. The same thing for playing George McFly on Back to the Future. I
Right.
had to study Crispin's work and get his physicalization and his speaking pentameter and so on and so forth, mannerisms, because I was going to be scrutinized, and people didn't know for many years that there was a different actor in there. I'd say probably 45% of the people out there don't
Yeah.
realize it's not him, which the studio wanted, of course.
Yeah.
Uh,
That is a
whereas with
very
Mark Twain,
common
it's the same
internet
thing.
fact, you know. Do you know that?
Sorry,
It's a very common internet fact. Do you know that?
I've heard that, yes.
Yeah.
And so for preparing for Mark Twain,
Mm.
I had actually not a lot of time between when I got cast and when we started shooting.
Mm-hmm.
But I read the book that the shoot, Dreamland, Mark Twain in Jerusalem, was based on. His book, The Innocents Abroad, of his trip to Europe and the Holy Land of 1867.
Right.
So I tried very hard to get as much research in and makeup and hair and everything and wardrobe and find what mannerisms felt right through his reading his work aloud. And then I also did research on finding his voice. Now there was no, even though he had a dictaphone in his office, no known recordings of his voice exist.
Right.
But a very famous uh, 19th century actor or early 20th century actor named William Gillette uh, lived next door to Twain,
Right.
and he met Mark Twain. William Gillette was a little boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and Twain was an old man by then.
Uh-huh.
And William Gillette, in a recording of him, imitates Mark Twain's voice,
Right.
and that was somewhat helpful in that, though I put together, though Gillette was imitating Mark Twain's drawl when Mark Twain was an old man, and here I needed to play Twain at the age about 35 or so.
Uh,
So, so then I just basically put together my own sort of mix of a dialect from Missouri, combination of
mm,
Missouri, Western, and New England, because he lived in all three places.
right.
Uh, so it was, and it didn't, ultimately it didn't matter because they took out all of my dialogue and my lecturing and put it in narration,
Uh-huh.
and used some older guy imitating Hal Holbrookish Twain accent for the Twain voice, which was very disappointing. But
Right.
I continue to play Twain. In fact, I'm trying to redefine myself right now by developing an educational entertainment show for schools and homeschoolers
Mm-hmm.
called Twain's History Lessons, basically.
That is
So I'm
awesome. That is
trying to develop that right now because I gotta make a living.
yeah. But it's a very nice thing to do. I must say that.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Musani.
So, okay, this one might sound a bit funny, but if you could go back into the past, what would you change?
What would I change?
Yeah, you've been back to the future. If you could go back to the past, what would you change?
I think I probably when in 1982 when I screen tested for the lead in a film called War Games,
Uh-huh.
uh, a very aggressive agent
Uh-huh.
pursued me. I was up in the San Francisco Bay Area going to school at the American Conservatory Theater, and an
Right.
agent pursued me, brought me back to Hollywood, to Los Angeles, where I'd grown up,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to try to get work right away. And that resulted eventually in Twilight Zone movie, my first co-star role.
Right.
And I think I would have held that off to finish my studies to get my degree from
Mm-hmm.
the American Conservatory Theater because I was in my second year towards my master's, and I kind of set that aside because opportunity knocked for me to come to Hollywood as sort of a hot item.
Right.
And I think I would change that. I think I would have gone back to finish that study.
Mm-hmm. So, Jeffrey, I also know that you do have some sort of online venture. What is that about?
Well, because of the pandemic,
Yeah.
I have participated on a lot of different online ventures.
Mm-hmm.
Right away, a producer put together a fan base of 300 different Back to the Future fans from 9 different countries
Right.
and remade Back to the Future Part 2. And it's called uh, uh, Back to the Future 2, TOO,
Mm-hmm.
Project 88, because
Right.
he cut the script up into 88 different scenes and
Mm-hmm.
assigned them to these people around the world. So you can find it on YouTube and also at project88.com.
Uh-huh.
And I do a cameo in that as reprising my role as George McFly. Look for
Mm-hmm.
that. And then I was asked to play Doc Brown in
Right.
a version of Back to the Future as if it was the first film, as if it was written by Shakespeare.
Uh-huh.
So a Shakespearean version of Back to the Future, I played Doc Brown with a company called The Show Must Go Online out of London.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on YouTube as well. And for them, I've also played Sir Toby Belch in a Zoom version of Twelfth Night.
Right.
They're working their way. They're almost complete with the whole canon of Shakespeare's plays,
Uh-huh.
doing a different play every week. Very hardworking, wonderful cast from around the world. I also have been doing some virtual signings. There's one coming up for Tokyo Comic Con at supercollector.com where uh, Chris Lloyd and Michael J. Fox, Leah Thompson, myself, Tom Wilson, and others from the
Mm-hmm.
cast are doing a virtual signing for fans around the world.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and I've got a film called DeLorean Living the Legend that I narrate that has just started yesterday
Uh-huh.
uh, uh, streaming on Amazon Prime. And that's once again about DeLorean owners around the world, the DeLorean story, and the Back to the Future fans, and all that stuff.
Well, all the best
And
wishes for that.
I narrate that film, and it's very. It took
Mhm.
Jordan Livingston, the director. It took him 12 years to make the film, and it's quite wonderful.
It must be worth it, I'm sure.
Yes, and then if someone wants to get a Pizza Hut foil or action figure signed or a poster signed, that you can write me through my website jeffreyweissman.com,
Mm-hmm.
and the email will get to me, and I'll let you know what I've got to sign, or you could send me whatever you have that I
Oh,
could
that's
sign for
perfect.
your
That's
collection.
perfect. A huge poster is coming from my way.
Great.
I hope I get some discount for the interview.
I'm hoping ScreenBinge will make me look good.
Of course, you already look good. Come on. So,
So I sent you some photos. I don't know if you can use them or not, but I have different photos from my work that I don't know if you want to
yes,
use
I
for
did receive
promoting
them. I
this
did
interview.
receive.
You saw in the chat that I sent your
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Good. Here's recently for the fundraiser for Team Fox, we had the designer of this special effects wardrobe on, and as
Mm-hmm.
you can see behind me here, virtually was the design he made for George McFly's futuristic watch.
Right.
And he also designed the that ortholev that suspends George upside down in the future. I had a fan make my George McFly 2015 action figure. I don't know if you can see this if I hold it up here. It's that
uh,
I don't know if you can see it. Oh
uh,
dear,
I can't
I don't know.
actually.
There he is. Um, here I'll
Oh,
take the background
yeah.
off.
Maybe that'll help.
Here I hold it in front of my
Oh,
face. There
wow.
we.
Oh, wow.
So you can see that little upside down George
Yes, I
2015
did. Yes,
action.
I did.
Whoop. There. Where is it? Oh well. There it is.
It's pretty amazing.
Keeps disappearing. It's been great. Fans will sometimes send me.
Just make sure there's no voodoo in there.
That's right. See if I can get this thing to go off.
Yeah.
There we go. I will take the background off, and you can see my home. And here's a piece that a fan artist
That's amazing.
made that
You
I
have people
purchased.
loving you from, all over the world.
Yes, I had a drawing sent to me by a kid that made 14-year-old did of me in Australia.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yeah, all over. I've been very, very fortunate
Mm-hmm.
to be loved by the fans.
Right. Now this is psychedelic, huh? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So, Jeffrey, I won't take much of your time. Any last words for your fans? You have a worldwide following. So any message, anything that you would like to say to the people, the common people, you know?
Well, I I just pray that in this unprecedented time that everybody stay healthy, stay safe and smart and diligent
Yeah,
with all the precautions to keep themselves and their loved ones and others that they don't even know safe,
yeah.
with compassion, and that we just make it through this. Pardon me, as he sneezes. And we make it through this, and hopefully we'll get back to work. I'll get to be a part of more great storytelling and keep understanding the human condition and
Right.
enlightening and
Uh-huh.
educating.
Uh-huh. Thank you so much for your time, Jeffrey. And it's been an honor. And this is something that I'll never forget.
Mr.
Uh,
Musani, salam alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. You got that right, huh? You did
Be
your
well.
research, huh? Okay. Goodbye.
Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure, like I said.